of the Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host, and I'm joined by Seth Wintraum. How are you doing this week, Seth?
I'm good, Fred. What do you think of the new this and that and this?
Hey, we just upped the prediction value up 2,000%, much like Tesla stock this week. No, not quite so much, but
good one.
Pretty close. Pretty close.
Yeah, for those listening on the podcast and not watching on YouTube, we have now a Chiron and a logo because we're using new software. What is it called again? StreamYard. We went from Jitsi, which kept crashing on us, to StreamYard. So it should be a little nicer. Hopefully the sound's good. Let's start the show.
All right, and we have a lot to discuss, of course, this week. We're going to start with the earnings and then go back from there. Of course, the big surprise is Tesla actually delivered a decent, not just a slight profit, but a decent amount of profit for the quarter, even though the Wall Street and most people were expecting a slight loss. So that's the best news all week. But as usual, with the release of the report, Tesla has a bunch of other announcements and highlights special key points for the quarter. In this case, not the biggest one. I mean, it's arguable, of course, but I would say that Model Y production being advanced a few months, a full quarter, really, from fall 2020 to summer 2020. Probably the most significant one if you consider just how important the Model Y is to Tesla's growth next year. And other than that, there was some comment about Gigafactory 3, which is much like Model Y is important for growth next year. Gigafactory 3 is important for growth in Q4. And Tesla confirmed that they have trial production going and that they are producing full cars there. So we've been hearing things like that for the past few weeks, but it's nice to hear it confirmed from Tesla. However, they're still waiting from some sort of government approvals on the product themselves. So probably Tesla needs to do a trial production, get a few cars out there, and them over to the government. They have to check them out, make sure it's up to the Chinese standards. Yes, there are such a thing, people. I know it's always the thing about the Chinese-made products. There's no standard. Hey, they can make some good product.
iPhones are made in China.
Yes. So some people, they write that out on iPhones that China has no standards. But yeah, we expect that in the next few weeks, really, they're going to start deliveries. Though they've been saying that they're going to start deliveries to employees at Gigafactory 3, which is nice. While not announced in the earnings, we can discuss it real quick since it's really related to that. It came out earlier today that Tesla launched the Made in China. I guess it's a Standard Range Plus, equivalent to the Standard Range Plus, though it's not exactly the same specs, because I have to assume that the battery pack is a little bit different due to the battery cell being from LG Chem instead of Panasonic. And they launched it at the equivalent of $50,000 US. So Tesla already opened the reservation on those earlier this year, but it was they were selling it without Autopilot. Now with Autopilot is included, it's $50,000. It's about $4,000 more expensive, but it's just 3% less expensive than the Model 3 they were shipping. They were importing from California to China. So a lot of people are confused about that, saying like, is there really that much value into avoiding the import duties? And based on the selling price, not really. No, well, 3% is still 3%. But Tesla should have access to more EV incentive in China with the Model 3 being Chinese made. So that alone should help. Also, I'm not sure about that. Maybe you can comment on that since you are quite familiar with the Chinese market. There's probably, maybe not, but is there an advantage for the demand for people they would prefer in China a Chinese-made car to an imported Model 3?
I mean, the Chinese are nationalist as much as anybody. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be the same as buying a BMW made in the Carolinas. Like it's still a BMW, but it's made here, in the same general area as we are. I don't know if that would make a big difference. I know I know the Chinese love Tesla in general. Like the brand does quite well, and they were selling cars when the prices were reasonable. So $3,000. I think maybe Tesla's they're not dropping the bottom out of the price. They're people who are buying right now. You know how they did in the U.S. They didn't when they released the Model 3. They started pretty high and they came down pretty fast.
Yeah.
Sometimes too fast in our opinion, I think. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. I do think the announcement that you could buy a car now in China from the factory is why the stock is so far up today. Again, like it's up like another 20 points from 40 points yesterday. So
Yeah, and something to note: those cars that now that open for orders, they are estimating a delivery in Q1 2020. So it sounds like Tesla, from the backlog that they got from opening the reservation, the orders in May, with that sort of standard range plus Model 3 without Autopilot, they have enough of a backlog through the rest of the quarter, though we have no clue what that is, because Tesla's ramp up, of course, are very difficult, especially at the beginning. And they aim for 1,000 a week by the end of the year. If that's first of December, then that's 4,000 cars and whatever they can produce between now and then. Or it can literally be like a last day of the year, and they can, like they did with the Model 3 before, and extrapolate from like 1 day of production. Oh, we can make 1,000 car a week. So we really don't know. But it's still exciting that Tesla has now 2 production facilities for the first time, which was never the case before, unless you count the Tilburg factory in the Netherlands. But that's like
factory. Yeah. So what do you think these are fully made in China? Or are they like
definitely not? Yeah, definitely not. And I will assume that the drivetrain, definitely not. Maybe the whole powertrain is not made there. Even Elon. So there's been this phase 2 thing at Gigafactory that they've been talking about for a while. New buildings coming up on the south end of the factory, and there's been speculation that that's going to be for battery cells production. It's going to be for Model Y and whatnot. Elon did briefly comment on that during the call on Wednesday, and he said that it's going to be for battery production. But if Elon says battery, he said battery and module production. So I have to assume that he means battery pack and battery modules.
Yeah.
So they're going to use the cells from LG Chem. They're going to put them battery module, put them battery pack. Not you would have cell if it was for battery cell production. I have to think that's what makes the most sense to me. So, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, the level of production of the Model 3 there. Tesla did release with the earnings a bunch of pictures from inside the factory, and you clearly see stamping press. So they're doing the body panel. You see full body production line. You see full assembly line. You see the paint shop. So there's a lot that's being made there. A lot more than the Tilburg factory, I would assume. It's not just final assembly.
And it's quite a bit bigger than the Tilburg factory.
Obviously. Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. But yeah, I think that was also one of the biggest news of the earnings. Well, and what we continue today. Following that, oh yeah, big news for existing Tesla owners was the announcement that Elon made during the call that there's going to be a power increase, among other things, through a software update. So there's already was one for the performance Model 3 earlier this year. It was like a few percentage point, and resulted in a slight bump in top speed.
Did you feel the power increase? I'm always like kind of like it feels kind of better, but it's more like placebo.
Well, I'm not sure if non-performance version got a power increase. They got a range increase thing,
right?
Apparently, but that there's a controversy around that because of for first of all, not everyone felt it on the actual software, yourself included, I think, and also there's the fact that Tesla was always able to advertise the range of the Model 3 to 325, like they did increase it from 310 to 325. And because of the way they played with the EP numbers, of course, that we reported in depth in that a few months back, maybe a year ago or something. Um, but now it's not the range. Well, it's partly the range apparently especially for Model S and X. It's partly the range, but it's they are optimizing the motor controls to increase the power output, and also they're gonna be an increase in comfort, in feel, in the feel of the single pedal driving is also improving, and in terms of power increase, it's gonna look like a 5% for Model S and X, 5% for Model 3, 3% for Model S and X. That's how much detail they reveal. So it's quite vague still. Is it going to be 5% increase for all Model 3 vehicles, or 5% increase for dual motor cars, 5% increase for performance cars? We don't know. 3% increase for Model S and X. And because those two are linked, like because Model 3 and S and X are getting it, I have to assume that S and X is only going to be the newer cars with the Raven motors, which is a permanent magnet motor like the 3. That would make more sense. That's where they improve the optimize the motor control. I might be wrong, but that makes more sense to me. Supercharging speed increase for standard range plus owner. That's a big deal, because those are the car that Model 3s, the long range Model 3s, were getting the full 250 kilowatts, not the smaller battery pack version. They didn't say how much you're gonna get, but it's gonna get the bump, so that's welcome. Yeah, I mean, like I said the last time they did that with the range increase, I wasn't that impressed by it. I know it sounds good for the line. You're increasing the range of a car through a software update. It sounds great. Over the air software update. But due to the caveats of Tesla already being able to advertise a range like that, I wasn't sure if it was really an actual change in software, or is it just like, okay, now we can start advertising it like that? So
Right.
so it was too suspicious to me. This time, though, there's nothing suspicious. They are optimizing the motor control, and you get more power out of the car. That's just awesome. Of course, we're still waiting for more details, though, to just understand exactly who's gonna get what here.
Yeah, I'm always interested in exactly what they're doing. Like, are they timing the stator differently? Like, what exactly? I wish they would go into more detail on like what exactly is changing.
Yeah, most people probably wouldn't understand.
Yeah, but and frankly, I wouldn't fully understand. But like, it would be nice to get some of our folks who are really into this stuff.
Break it down.
Yeah, just so we can kind of see exactly what's happening and how much is like marketing and how much is real improvement.
Because you're right. At the end of the day, when they did release that before, a lot of people didn't feel the difference that much. So
yeah, 5% isn't a ton, but it starts adding up overall.
Yeah, I never pushed my Model 3 to 160 something miles per hour. That's the new top speed. So now, but I did see people do it, so that's the proof that it was actually the case. But other than that, there's ones that are harder to prove, like the range increase thing, that it was really a hit or miss for people. Some people saw a big increase, others didn't. And of course, it goes both ways, as we learned for some Model S 85 kilowatt hour owners who got a big range drop with Tesla's protecting the battery pack update.
Right.
That's now in the hands of the court too. So
yeah, I wonder if they're going to get some of their mileage back.
Well, when we reported that it was going to the court, it was going to the court. Tesla said that they were doing things to improve that, and then it went to NHTSA, started an investigation after a complaint from one of the owners, and then Tesla said that we're also working on things there. So who knows?
Yeah.
All right. What else from the earnings here? Tesla going to launch the new version of solar roof tiles tomorrow. Of course, that was yesterday. Now it is that was Wednesday, and now the article would have been true if it was posted yesterday. But Elon did say that V3 is coming out. Well, during the earnings, he said it was coming out yesterday, and now it's coming out today at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So
5 hours.
In 5 hours time. Really not clear what the event is gonna be, if they invited people, or it's just gonna be like a live stream, or if it's just gonna be even press release. Sometimes it's just a press release. I mean, for version 3 of the thing, it might just be a press release thing. I really don't know.
I feel like if there's a specific time that there's going to be some sort of event,
Live stream.
maybe they'll do like a live stream. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
None of our journalist friends have been invited that we know of. So, and none of our readers who are solar customers have been invited either. So
Yeah.
It'll probably be a smaller event if there is such a thing.
And then we already heard a lot about V3. I mean, the goal was to make it last longer. Tesla wants to make sure it lasts 30 years on the roof of homes of the customers, and they want to make it cheaper too. It's not cheap, solar roof. It makes sense when you account for the energy generation that the solar roof make, and the fact that it's higher end type of roof. I mean, it's not like an asphalt roof or anything like that. Like it's
right.
It's equivalent to the price of a tile roof, which is already expensive, and then you add on top of that the price of a full solar system on it. So, like Elon said recently on Twitter, it only makes sense if you need to replace your roof soon enough, or if you're building a new house, then you should definitely consider it too, because
right, because you're factoring in the cost of the roof to make
the
it
installation too.
Right.
Like you're gonna have to have a roof installed anyway.
Right.
And the installation is not cheap right now, and that was one of the problems that we highlighted during the V2 version of the solar roof that Tesla has been installing, and it's that it takes about 2 weeks for an average roof to get a solar Tesla roof tile. So that's
compared to 1 day on a normal solar installation.
Well, solar installation and then roof replacement and removal too, which is on average 5 to 7 days. So it's like twice as long as a regular what a regular roof installation plus solar will take, and that's bad because that affects your growth potential. And of course, it's also more expensive to have workers on your roof for 2 weeks. It's probably disturbing to like you cannot live in that house, right? During that time, like I don't know if you can.
I mean, you could probably live downstairs if it's 2-story.
Anyway, so that, and so the cost at the end of the day, they want to reduce the cost so that it makes more sense financially for more people. And right now, we cannot confirm it just yet, but we are hearing some, very good things about updated quotes, because Tesla has endowed quite a few quotes for the V2 of the solar roof, and not everyone pull the trigger on it. So they are going back to those customers with the V3 and the new quotes that the V3 enables, and we hear that some people are quite happy about it. So that's good news. We're gonna, of course, report that later today after the announcement. All right. In the less good news, Tesla Semi production is going to start in limited volume in 2020. So if you remember when Tesla first unveiled the truck in 2017, they said that the production is going to start in 2019. Of course, there's only 2 months and a half left in 2019. Not going to happen. And they did warn us about that earlier this year, that production is going to happen in 2020. Now production is going to be limited volume in 2020, which tells me that volume production is only coming in 2021. So yeah, that's cool. Starting to be quite a delay here. Of course, Tesla, since unveiling the Tesla Semi, have been focusing mostly on Model 3, and then Model Y is coming next year. And Model Y, as we reported earlier today, is ahead of time. So clearly the focus there worked. But they cannot let that slip any longer, I think, because we're talking about commercial customers. We're talking about people that want to order quite large fleets. However, like they probably want to start with a few trucks and then see if they can expand, and then Tesla can have the volume after that. But
there's also some competition in the market. Daimler's already rolling out trucks in Europe, and they have a few in the US.
I think Tesla's not too worried about that though, because you're talking about the E-Freightliner, East Cascadia Freightliner. I think it's like half the range of the Tesla Semi or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, customers will start going elsewhere. And Daimler could up their range pretty easily. I mean, Freightliner isn't like a small organization.
Yeah.
They already have these contracts with these companies. So
But
I
they
would,
also said
I wouldn't
volume
write them.
production in 2021 for
Right,
China.
right,
They're still in low production, and what they deliver, they call it customer innovations fleet,
right.
which
I mean,
is
they're retrofits. They're not like
they retrofit. But I mean, with the customers, those customer deliveries that you're talking about, they call it an innovation fleet, which is sort of a a partner program to test with customers. So it's still not like I don't think they call it production vehicles. I doubt they do. But yeah, you're right. There's competition coming, not just from them, but Volvo's also coming up with their trucks and a few others. So, like I said, don't let it slip past 2021. Well, I think volume production is coming 2021, limited volumes, and they say limited volumes coming next year, and we still don't have a confirmation on where Tesla Semi is getting built. There's been a bunch of rumors that it's going to be Gigafactory 1 in Nevada, and I think for sure the powertrains are going to be made there because I mean powertrains is mostly based on the Model 3 and it's already being made there. But the actual body of the truck and everything that we don't know. We heard rumors that Tesla might do that also at Gigafactory 1, but also heard rumors that they might partner with a third-party manufacturer for those since they don't have really that much experience with large trucks. That would surprise me because Tesla love vertical integration, if anything, and they need that expertise to build a bigger vehicle. I think I mean, it's not. It's kind of in between. Like the pickup truck is coming, but I mean, I know it's not quite a semi truck, but apparently might be based on Elon's comment, right?
Yeah, and we saw on Twitter today kind of the interesting thing about the Blade Runner component.
Oh yeah,
which,
go ahead.
which is becoming more of a talking point I've seen recently. Blade Runner, the original movie, was supposed to have taken place in November 2019 in Los Angeles, which is the launching off point. So we looked at Blade Runner and saw some kind of the vehicles in there, and they look so wacky that it's hard to imagine like a real vehicle with those kind of things. Although one of them kind of looked like the Tesla Semi, so we'll see.
Yeah, so kind of Blade Runner-esque, kind of armored personal car-esque.
I mean, is he so?
Futuristic.
Question though, is Elon so into Blade Runner and these other like inside joke, dad joke things that he planned it this way, or is it just a
No,
kind of a coincidence?
I think he wanted something futuristic and something, and then he just looked at it like, oh, that looks kind of Blade Runner-esque. I like it, and then because you know how it works. I mean, they come up with a bunch of design, and then they put all that, and like they go through them and like see what works and everything. So I'm sure there was some wacky ones in there, and then even though this one was wacky, there was some wackier one that made it look that it wasn't too bad, and then they're like, oh, maybe that's a good idea. So I could see how that would have worked out.
By the way, I'm not sure if you noticed, but the chirons below are now our names. I'm not sure how I did that. I was clicking the comments, and anyway, that's just a little thing for the video watchers.
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a second. I'm back.
That's all right.
All right. Well, not news, but very interesting comment from Elon Musk, which I think he did say before to a degree, but the way he phrased it this time was very interesting. I'm skipping the full self-driving here. Oh, let's go to the full self-driving comment then first before going to the energy thing. The feature complete, that's a word that you've been hearing a lot if you've been following Elon's full self-driving comment over the last year. And he said it again. Well, he clarified what it means this time. And that's pretty much what we thought it was. So not that big of a news, but it's nice to hear him exactly. When he means feature complete, he means that all the pieces are in place. It's just not that a refined product. So the way he sees it right now, and that's the way he sees it. I'm not saying that's not the way he sees it. Like with what Tesla has right now, which is Autopilot, is a form of self-driving on the highway with supervision they have. Then there's smart summon, which is a form of self-driving with supervision in low-speed environment, mainly parking lots. And they need something in between for city driving, basically, and everything in between. So now they're working on that, which takes into account traffic light information and things like that, intersection and whatever. So they're gonna release that, they say, by the end of the year, at least to the early access program, or a limited version of the early access program, he said. So that would put the three main pieces together, and that's what he called feature complete. So doesn't mean it's self-driving yet. It means that everything is in place and you need to refine the whole thing. And refining the whole thing will eliminate corner cases that the vehicle can face on the road, leading to eventually reaching what, I mean, Elon basically reinvented the three level of autonomous, like the SAE as their home, like level 1 through 5. Elon is those three levels. Yes, this level, which is feature complete. Then the second level, which is the same thing, but it's refined enough that you don't need the driver supervision, which that you see at the end of next year. So that's what we expect at the end of next year from Tesla, at least based on Elon's expectation. Then he calls it a third level, which is now it's good enough, or I mean, it's been demonstrated enough that the regulators accept it and release it. So only then you can actually not have supervision. Really.
Right. So the taxis won't be in force until the regulation thing is completed.
Yeah.
So it's not like going to happen at the end of this year. It's not going to happen at the end of next year. And frankly,
Well, he did say end of next year. So that's the clarification here. Well, what he did say before that is Tesla has a fleet of 1 million robotaxi by the end of next year. That's what he was saying.
I mean, they might have a fleet, but they're not going to be being used.
Yeah, well, now what we understand is that they would have a fleet. Of course, that's just based on production numbers, that the fleets will be 1 million, whatever. So that's not that big of an issue. It would be that they will also be ready to release technically a full self-driving system without supervision, which is what you need to enable a robotaxi. So then it would be ready to that. So what he's saying is that technically, if a regulator would be ready to pull the trigger right then too, then they could enable it in that specific market where the regulator's okay. Which I think is a fair description to a degree, because not most market, but I'm sure that some market are gonna be like, they're gonna want to be the pioneer and say, all right, well, let's open it. Like, what those market will be, I don't know, but I'm sure there'll be some.
Yeah, I mean, if and that's a big if Tesla does meet the end of next year deadline.
Yeah.
So
let's bring that back to the earnings, because that's kind of an interesting part. Because as they mentioned during the show, during the conference call, they now have $500 million in unrecognized revenue from the full self-driving package. They have $1 billion actually in unrecognized revenue, but there's a bunch of different things in there, including like the supercharger, the free supercharger. Like, they have to have an account for that in there, since that's recognized over a period of time, since they were actually like kind of selling it through the price of the car. But the most of it now, like the majority of it now, is becoming full self-driving. So they need to deliver that in order to unlock
It looks like Fred is frozen at the moment, and offline. So I guess we'll move on to the beyond self-driving. One thing that I was particularly interested in this conference call was the Tesla energy statement, and it was quick, and it wasn't really a big statement, but it was very important, in my opinion. So let me get the exact statement, but it was Tesla Energy is becoming a distributed global utility and could outgrow its automotive business. And that's paraphrasing a little bit, especially on the outgrow automotive business. But let me read exactly what he said. Tesla's overarching strategy here is effectively to become a giant distributor global utility. So what does that mean? So Tesla has all of these projects going on, and most of them are well, there's the big projects, the power packs and bigger, and then there's the power walls that are being installed in people's houses all over the U.S. and internationally, and Tesla has control over these. I don't think they have a signed agreement with each customer owner, but for instance, in places like Vermont, the power provider, Green Mountain Power, has access to these in many cases, and they can kind of balance out the grid and prevent peaker plants from having to fire up, which is a big cost savings. I mean, relatively speaking, these demand usage power plants are super expensive and they're super hard to maintain. And then, they run on gas and they're super dirty. Like basically everything that you don't want in a power plant. So Tesla has access to all this power. And, we haven't even started talking about cars. Each car has, 100 kilowatt hours of electricity available to it. So Tesla can kind of group all this stuff up. And with cars, you don't necessarily have to have vehicle to grid to make it valuable. You can stop all the charging of the cars in the whole fleet, and that'll reduce the demand usage of the grid in a particular geo. So anyway, Tesla is kind of touting its ability to become a virtual a grid provider. And I think that is a very understated part of its portfolio of products. And I think Elon's saying here that as they add more and more storage and solar to their portfolio, all of a sudden they're getting this. They're not only selling products and making money on the sale of these products, but they are also building this virtual grid provider platform that they haven't even started to monetize yet. It's something that they're doing in Southern Australia as well. So still no Fred. Oh wait, maybe he's back.
Yeah.
You back?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Been in the background for a while now.
Sorry about that. I didn't see you.
That was interesting stuff. No, don't worry about it. No, I think my internet just had an issue here for a second and just completely dropped out.
All right. So we did the Elon statement on energy.
Okay. Yeah, that was an interesting one. But what do you think of the chance of it actually happening, though? Because it
is happening in a way.
It is happening, but if you look at the actual numbers, last quarter the auto business was 5 billion, and
catching up to the auto business.
Yeah, because the auto business is not going to slow down too. I mean,
right.
Just before saying that, you said, "Oh, we're going to sell 20 million cars," and
I don't know if it's going to catch up, but I mean, as a growth, I think it could potentially keep up with the auto business growth wise. It depends on what other players are involved, how they negotiate with other I mean, they're not putting up telephone poles and wiring houses, so they're not end use, but they maybe they get into microgrids and stuff like that, and that's big money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It all makes sense to me. I'm just not sure that at the pace that the auto business is going, if it really can catch up, because it was like 400 million last quarter, which is pretty good. That 400 millions was basically almost all energy storage, not that much solar. So yeah, it would be interesting to see if it catch up, and if it does, like when that could be. I don't see it happening in the next decade for sure. Well, the last comment is the Cybertruck thing, which Elon literally said he's not going to comment about the pickup truck during the call, and then he said he does go on to comment saying that it's going to be the best product that he ever made, which just has the whole hype, but that there's not much to talk about here. All right, now of the earnings. Oh yeah, there was the Autopilot safety numbers too that Tesla was. Normally they send that out not on the report, the report, but this time they did, and still looking good, almost 9 times safer than the average driving. But of course, there's a bunch of caveats with those numbers, and we won't go through them again. But they're not perfect. There's no perfect way to compare them right now. If all automakers would release similar information, then that'd be more interesting, so that you can go with car in the similar categories and car in similar ages. But we just don't have those data right now. All right. So other than the earnings, we also had a few other interesting articles this week. Starting for earlier in the week, I spoke to the first, or at least the first reported, Model 3 owner to reach 100,000 miles in his Model 3. So that was interesting, because I don't know about anyone that's even close to that. Oh, no, that's not true. Someone reached out to me after that with someone with around 90,000 miles, which is pretty close to. But other than those two, like nothing close to it. So the owner in question is Arthur Dreisen. He's from Los Angeles, and he's just been all over with his car and doing a bunch of fun things. You can follow him on Twitter at mcarbon, or on his blog voyagewithoutcarbon.com, and he talks about his entire travel with the car. But we talked to him to specifically know all the cars being holding up after 100,000 miles, because that's really interesting, and surprisingly extremely well. The only maintenance he had to do is the tires, which of course you're going to go through a few sets of tires at 100,000 miles. But in terms of actual repairs, nothing done for normal wear. The only thing that they had done is 2 repairs, but they were related to what he himself admitted is beating the car to death. One thing was related to going through a valley stream, which of course we won't really recommend. He blew a control arm while going into the stream. And the other time is on the flat salts of Bonneville. There was high winds, his door was open, and it just slammed his door super hard, and something broke in the door. So
he's not babying this car, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, no one is babying your car 100,000 miles we're talking about less than 2 years here. You got the car in March 2018, I think. Yeah, March 2018. So that's the main thing I think people wanted to know. Of course, the other thing is always battery degradation. This case, he said that he still gets 302 to 308 miles of range at max range. So that's pretty good, considering that when he bought the car it was 310, though officially we're talking about the Model 3 long range here, so technically it should be 325 now. He didn't see an effect of that upgrade to his car like many others, as we discussed earlier. So I don't know how you want to look at it. If it's from 310, it's a 2.5% loss. So as max, so pretty good after 100,000 miles, really.
I thought it was also interesting that he said he saved $7,000 just on gas versus a Honda Civic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty impressive.
And that's accounting for the fact that the guy supercharges all the time, and his supercharging is not free since it's a Model 3 long range.
Right.
So that's pretty good. Yeah, and he does. Like, when I say, like, of course, when you do road trips that much, you're going to use a supercharger a lot. But he also doesn't have a charging solution at home. He lives in an apartment in Los Angeles, so he literally only supercharges all the time. And so there's some talk about that. I mean, only charging through DC fast charging that could affect the longevity of the battery pack. I haven't seen that much evidence of that being true, though, in real world evidence. Like, there's been a bunch of studies of Tesla battery pack health, and they try to take into account the supercharging sessions that the owners were doing, and they couldn't find a correlation between high usage of DC fast charging and high battery degradation. So, but in this case, like, so it would make sense what we're saying, because he does only DC fast charge, but he has a really good charging habits with this fast charging, where he never lets the car go below 10%, and most of the time he doesn't full charge with the supercharger. It doesn't go to 100%, which most people don't, but he doesn't even go past 60% if he knows there's a supercharger around. Of course, the advantage of that is he's not only doing it for battery health, but he's also doing it for moving faster, because the lower is your state of charge, the faster you're going to charge at the supercharger station. So if you're doing a road trip, it actually makes sense to just charge it to 60%, go to the next one, and charge again.
You want to roll into every supercharger with 0 miles if you can.
Well, he does say that he tried to aims for 10%. So.
Yeah. So we have a commenter, and I'm going to put his comment up on the screen if I can.
You can do that now?
Look at that.
Wow.
I heard that a taxi service in Canada has a Tesla Model 3 with 150,000 miles.
Really? In Canada, you'd think that I would have heard of it.
Yeah. I mean, so we don't, the commenter, Gook Wapanzi, I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I know our Tesla taxi friend from Quebec City, but it has probably a lot more than that by now, but that's in the Model S. I'm sure there are Model 3 taxi services in Canada now. I just don't know of one that's already on 150,000 miles.
That might be kilometers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're just not sure that's not kilometers, because that would make more sense. I've seen a bunch of Model 3s now past 100,000 kilometers. We reported on a bunch of them just a few months ago. Like, we talked to 3 different owners with over 100,000 kilometers. But now we're talking about 100,000 miles, which is 1.6 times that.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting close if it's 150,000 kilometers. Mm-hmm.
So far, so good is basically what we can summarize this with. And so far, Musk is right about his thing about building the Model 3 to last 1 million miles, though we are not quite there yet. However, he did also mention the caveats that the battery pack is made to last between 300 and 500 miles. Looking good for that right now based on the first 100 miles, if you're still at just 2.5% degradation. And we know that the first degradation is always the steeper one, then it levels up for a while too. So looking good. All right, next thing, made in China Model 3, we already discussed it. So moving on for China, from Tesla for the rest of the podcast. Bunch of things coming out of the Tokyo Auto Show that was started this week, or at least the media part started this week, starting with Lexus. Nothing too exciting here. It's very much a concept car, electric one though.
And nice. It looks pretty.
Yeah, I mean, giant gull's wings always look insane, right. But the whole thing looks crazy and done concept, like not an actual production car. At the same time, so the real news here, as they unveiled that, they confirmed that they're going to unveil their first real production EV, all-electric car, next month. I have to assume that's going to be the LA Auto Show, which a bunch of things are expected there in the all-electric world. But so that's Lexus. Lexus is Toyota, and of course, Toyota and Lexus have been very kind of bad mouthing, EVs for a while now. They've been pushing their electric hybrids, which they claim are self-charging electric vehicles, basically. So that's really departing from all electric, which you need to charge it from another source, which is a bad thing for them. But for everyone else, that we know what that means. That means you can actually control that source, and it doesn't have to be burning gas. It can be solar, it can be wind, it can be hydroelectricity. So that's the goal of EVs. So when you release a hybrid and you say it's self-charging, it defeats the whole purpose of an EV. Anyway, we're gonna see the real Lexus electric. Well, I still think it's gonna be a concept, but it's gonna be a concept that's supposed to become a production car in the near future. I think next year it's coming out, their first EV from Lexus and Toyota. Not gonna be that thing, whatever it's called, the LF30 something. LF30 electrified concept. It's an all electric and they still call it electrified.
Yeah, because they're trying to blur that line because most of their cars are just hybrids, and they want to be. My understanding is that Toyota, from a branding standpoint, is really going to push the electrified because they want to be in that space where people want electric cars, but they don't have any electric cars as of this moment. So they're really pushing the electrified as a, quote unquote branding operation. I think it's a little disingenuous at best.
A little.
So we're not too pleased with Toyota these days.
All right. I think the commenter just confirmed that it was a Model S, not a Model 3. The taxi in Canada. Yeah. All right, sticking with Japanese automakers that are not quick to release all-electric car. Mazda unveiled their first EV this week, the MX-30. They open orders for the European market now, and it's starting delivery next year. We already knew a lot about the concept. We talked about it a few weeks ago when the prototypes went out and everything, and it's a 35.5 kilowatt battery pack with a 105 kilowatt motor. You're talking about a range of 130 miles. That's 210 kilometers. Of course, that's WLTP, so can expect closer to 100 miles. With 35.5 kilowatt battery pack, with the form factor here, which is kind of boxy, that's to expect. Looks good though. I have to say, it looks very good. Do you agree here?
I don't agree with you on that. On the looks.
You don't
good.
Agree?
No, I don't like this thing at all.
I do like Mazda concept and design in general, and I think it's still worth the design. So
no, I like that they're making an EV.
Suicide doors.
So I had a BMW i3 for like an extended review, which has the same kind of suicide door thing. And like when you drop your kids off at school, you have to go out and open. So that kills it for me. Like
it's for two people. It's not for family. It's not a family car. It's a small crossover with suicide doors. But
basically, like if you're in the back seat, you're at the whim of the people in the front seat.
Yeah.
Which you might as well just have two doors in that case. Anyway.
Yeah. That's fair.
So that's just the beginning. I don't like the way it looks, but that's subjective. I like the Chevy Bolt, so clearly I have issues. But but man, like 100 miles of range. Come on, what year is it? Like,
yeah,
they really they're kind of disappointing me there. Like, at least get up to 150, 180, something like that. Yeah. And this is just,
of course, it's always a price thing, though. If the price is there, then maybe like a city car, they will buy it. Under 30,000 pounds in the UK, 34,000 euros in Germany. That's the prices we have right now.
Yeah, and there's incentives.
That's too high, right?
Yeah. I think so. And interestingly, Japanese brand, but it's going to have CCS combo in Europe. No word about the US. Maybe we'll find out at LA. But it'll be interesting.
Doesn't mean I'm not even sure they're going to release it in the US, right?
It hasn't been announced.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like they're going to save that for the LA Auto Show. Maybe. I don't know.
I wouldn't. I'm not sure that it's going to be released in the US. It might be one of them.
Well,
Europe only.
This is a very compliance-y kind of car in my estimation. Like
and
Mazda
coming out next year, and they need their electric car next year for the regulation coming up in Europe.
Right. So they'll probably keep them all there. It's kind of like Kia in their Soul. They're not selling the Soul in the US because we have no incentives for car companies to sell electric vehicles, which is really sad.
Okay, so hear me out.
Okay.
In Canada, I think it would do pretty good, especially in Quebec. We do like our Mazda in Quebec. I think I'm not the only one in Quebec that likes the design of Mazda. I know the suicide door things are a problem. but like, so it's for two people. It's not one or two people. It's not for a family for sure. It's you'd be pushing it, like you said. But if they can bring it in Quebec for like 30,000, 30, let's say 35 under, then you have the $5,000 from the government, and then in Quebec you have the $8,000. So that's $13,000. A lot of people would go for that.
Yeah, I mean it's not a horrible looking, like the inside's kind of it reminds me, the inside reminds me a little bit of the i3 as well. Like they had with the interior, the fabrics and stuff. It's not a horrible car. It's just like not appealing to me at all. Like whereas we were looking at the Volvo last week. That car, I was like, yeah, I would definitely drive that.
Am I crazy? I think it's similar design.
It is similar, but all the things I like about the Volvo, I don't like about this.
Yeah, but when I say design, I'm just saying how it looks here. I'm not saying like the shape. Of course, the Volvo has 4 doors. This has, I don't know what you call that. Like, is it, you cannot call it 4 doors, right?
I don't
suicide
think so.
doors. But for younger folks, I mean, they like the way it looks, suicide doors. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's why the i3 is flying off the shelves.
i3 looks horrible.
Right.
No matter how you look at it, it just looks horrible. All right. Another one coming out of Tokyo is the Nissan Ariya.
Yeah, so that's what they did with the IMX, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way, if I'm understanding this correctly, of course, we heard from a long time now that Nissan wants a crossover to follow the Leaf. Just happened to be like 10 years later, but they do want that. And they released the IMX concept a few years ago. Now they released the Ariya concept, which is still a concept. And then they're going to release next year the production version of that crossover. But what they unveiled this week in Tokyo is just closer than IMX, but not quite yet production either. And you can see that in the images that they release. It's not, I mean, it's not, it looks pretty good actually, but you can see like, especially like the oversized wheels. Front end is quite a departure from also like the design language of production car from Nissan right now. So I would assume that they would keep with their design language unless they're planning an overall of their front end. You know, the V-shaped thing. It's still a V-shape, but much larger this time. Nice curves, but also kind of feel concept-like. Nissan is, of course, a lot more traditional in their design, except for the first gen Leaf, the bug eyes of the first gen Leaf. But yeah, no specs here, at least because again, it's still very much a concept. They talk about 300 miles of range and 5 seconds with 60, but with the car coming at probably in 2020, Europe, Japan, and 2021 US. That doesn't mean much when you talk about specs just now.
Yeah, and there's another, there's going to be another revision of the design, so it's going to be even less sexy than this and more Nissan-y.
More probably Leaf-like.
Right.
With the Leaf when 2016 was the Leaf redesign? 2017, 2016?
I think
17. So yeah, I mean, 2021, that's 4 years, so maybe there's going to be both at the same time. It's going to be a crossover than a new Leaf.
If they release this right now with all-wheel drive, a normal price and 300 miles of range, it would do incredibly well. But by the time
$45,000 car more and more, though, right?
Right, but by the time they get done with this, and a year and a half, and then it's going to look a lot lamer, I'm sure. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's going to catch the world on fire.
Yeah. Nissan I've been scratching my head about the whole thing. I don't get it at all. They were early to market with the Leaf. They had a lot of early success with the Leaf, and then they just let it die off. They just focus on incremental update. Sure enough, there was a bigger redesign, but it was like a hit or miss for people. And never released a crossover, never released an Infinity Electric. There was a ton of they saw Tesla, what Tesla was doing. They saw Tesla taking over the premium market with electric cars, and they have this Infinity brand sitting right there that's doing quite well with a few cars. and they have their expertise in electric powertrain to the Leaf, and they just couldn't connect the duct together. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And now they're going in the crossover with an electric car, the biggest selling segment in the world right now, and come up with a concept this week instead of a production car, which we all thought it was going to be a production car this week. So we all hoped, at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I maybe they're just too slow. I mean, maybe we're kind of spoiled by Tesla and their quicker iterations.
Probably right. Yeah.
But man, it's like a lot of these are very disappointing. Like I have to say, we were talking about the Chevy Bolt upgrade. 4 years later, they only upgraded the battery. There's some small things, but really just the battery. And they only did that because LG probably didn't have any of the old batteries. They're probably like, we've done some work. Our new batteries are 10% more efficient. And Chevy was like, all right, well, I guess put them in the car.
Yeah, you're forcing us to make our product better here.
Yeah,
how dare you?
I mean, that's literally that's probably what happened. I don't think GM did anything to make the batteries more. I mean, they're just LG cells that are 10% more efficient. So they didn't change the pack design at all. Anyway, that's a little rant, but
yeah, I mean, I think the LA Auto Show next month is going to be a bigger deal for EVs, for production EVs, things that we're going to get excited about in terms of accelerating the growth of EV adoption. But yeah, that was our week this week for that. Bollinger, speaking of one that's probably not going to accelerate EV adoption much, even though it's a nice product, it's just that this week they announced the pricing, and
it's for rich guys.
B1. Sorry, what do you say?
It's for rich guys.
For a rich guy, yeah. Both the B1 and the B2, which is like, if you remember Bollinger, of course, they are the maker of that rugged electric kind of Jeep-looking thing. And they made a pickup version of it. So that's the B1, the Jeep-like B2 for the pickup truck. And starting at $125,000. So there's been a lot of speculation about what's going to be the price and everything. And we all pretty much agreed that like over $80,000 is going to be a very small market for that. And then now it's $45,000 over that. So, I mean, I think there's still a market for it. I mean, the Jamie came up with the good example of Icon, the tuner of the Toyota 4Runner, I think, front 4Runner.
I'm not familiar with it, actually.
Yeah, well, Toyota's big rugged truck, and he makes it even more rugged with like an aftermarket kit, if you will, and he sells those for like $120,000, $140,000, $150,000. So
really.
And people buy them. People that do. I
mean, that's the finished car price, or is that you take your 4Runner there and they convert it for that price?
Good question. I think he buys. I think it's like a selling deal. They do buy it from the company, and then they refurbish themselves, and they not refurbish, but they modify themselves and then selling back. So I think it's a fully included price and everything. But yeah, so I can see someone wanting like a knowledge version of that, and that's basically fits the bill here. And we knew it's not going to be cheap because of the 120 kilowatt hour battery pack that comes with it. And you need that kind of big battery pack for having some kind of decent range on the truck, that size, that weight, that not aerodynamic. And yeah, you get about 200 miles of range with that. So it's going to be hand built too. So that's why it's probably more expensive. The CEO also reached out to me and said they're going to aim to do a lot of very quality American-made parts, which also increases the price. But again, I think there's still a market for it, just a small one. And yeah,
I mean,
that's what you need.
There's all those Mercedes and Land Rover folks,
that too.
The Defender folks. Those are $100,000 cars. So, but could be an option there.
If they build it like a tank, and I assume that's what they aim to do, if it's hand built and everything, they want to like test it and whatnot. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting product for some that just can afford it. Not going to be that many people, I think. Maybe as a commercial vehicle for some people, like in safaris, do an all electric safari.
Maybe
That could work. Anyway, let us know if you think of any use cases for that Bollinger B1 or B2. That'd be interesting. That's it for us this week. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot for watching on YouTube on our brand new look that we have, which I think people are liking so far. Except that I'm very dark right now, but that's because it's already the evening where I'm at, and I forgot to take that into account in my lighting situation. So I apologize for that. But that's it. See you same time, same place next week. Ciao.